Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on something kind of different.
Yeah, a little unusual.
It's where sci-fi meets, metaphysics.
Ooh.
We're going to be looking at this short story, Fredric Brown's Answer, and we're going to look at it next to some excerpts from The Law of One.
Right. And before anybody thinks we've gone completely off the deep end here,
Yeah.
we want to be really clear.
Totally.
We're not trying to force a literal interpretation here.
Yeah, it's more like we're having a conversation
Yeah,
with these two, like, seemingly totally different sources.
right.
Like what happens when you put them together? Do they talk to each other at all?
Right. Could Brown's story be like accidentally on the same wavelength as some of the ideas in the Law of One?
So let's start with Answer. This story,
Okay.
it's short, but it's like impactful.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's about this family that gets these dolls.
Okay.
They're called Stacks,
Giesenstacks.
and they're super realistic.
Okay.
But what's like creepy is that the way they play
Yeah.
with the dolls, it starts mirroring things that are happening in the family's actual life.
Yeah.
And it freaks this guy out.
Ah.
He's like a friend of the family.
Oh, so he's observing all this.
Yeah, and it makes him super uneasy.
It sounds like there's some kind of outside influence in the story, right?
Right.
Something subtle,
Yeah.
but like powerful.
Uh-huh.
And that's where the Law of One comes in with these ideas about consciousness on different levels
Yeah.
and these beings called wanderers.
Yeah.
And it gives us a really interesting way to look at this whole story.
Okay, so for anyone who's not familiar with the Law of One, it's like channeled material.
Right.
And it's supposed to be, from this extraterrestrial being called Ra.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're not saying we take it as like the absolute truth,
No.
but the ideas in it are super fascinating.
They really are.
So could these Stacks, these dolls,
Right.
they just show up,
I don't
out of
know.
nowhere, and they're so realistic.
Huh.
And they're like mirroring real life events.
Mm.
Could they be like a fictional version of these wanderers?
Mm.
Like their influence is subtle, it seems playful, but it has like real world consequences.
It really makes you think.
Yeah, and it gets even more interesting when you think about the observer in the story.
Right.
He's getting more and more freaked out because he's seeing a pattern, but he just can't explain it.
He's picking up on something that's
Yeah.
like operating on a totally different level of reality.
And that totally connects to Ray's concept of densities,
Exactly.
like different frequencies of awareness.
It's like he's tuning into a frequency he couldn't pick up before.
Oh, I like that.
And it's freaking him out because it like totally changes his understanding of how the world works.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, what is going on?
Totally.
Oh.
And, this leads us to another super important concept from the Law of One, catalysts.
Okay, so catalysts are like,
They're experiences that are meant to challenge us.
oh, okay.
And they're opportunities for us to learn and grow.
Right. And they can kind of push us in one or two directions. Service to others or service to self.
So those are the two main paths
Those are the two big ones.
for like spiritual evolution according to Ra.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you think about those weird events that keep happening in Answer and the dolls are like mirroring them,
Yeah.
could those be catalysts for the family?
That's a great question.
Like, are they being forced to choose how to respond even though they don't even realize it?
It's like a test.
It makes me think about like our own lives.
Yeah.
How often do we come across situations that really challenge us
All the time.
and do those challenges, like change our choices, our
Right.
actions, and ultimately like our path?
It makes you wonder if we really have as much control over our choices as we think.
Right.
Like, what if there's something else going on behind the scenes?
Mhm.
Maybe some subtle guidance.
Or even manipulation
Ooh, yeah.
that we're totally oblivious to.
It's a little creepy when you think about it. It is kind of creepy. And it reminds me of what Ross says about the veil.
Yeah, the veil.
Like, it's what separates our conscious mind from our unconscious mind.
Right.
And it makes learning in this third density, like, more intense,
Mm-hmm.
but it also limits what we can actually perceive.
It's like we're only seeing a small sliver of the bigger picture.
And that's where Answer gets really interesting.
Oh, how so?
The observer can't figure out what the Stacks really are.
Yeah.
He just sees what they do.
He sees the effects.
Yeah, the consequences of their creepy little games.
Right.
It's like the author's hinting at this veil, this limit to our awareness.
Right.
It's like we can't see the real nature of what's going on behind the scenes.
Because of the veil.
Yeah.
Like, we're working on this puzzle, but we don't have all the pieces,
Exactly.
We see these weird things happening, but
Yeah.
we have no idea what's causing them.
It really makes you wonder how much of what we call reality is shaped by things we can't even see.
right? And if these higher density beings that Ra talks about, if they're real,
Yeah.
what's their whole deal?
Right. Are they always like the good guys, like Ross says?
Well, that's where it gets tricky.
Okay.
The Law of One talks about these two paths.
Yeah.
Service to others and service to self.
Right.
And it's not like good versus evil, you know?
Okay.
It's
right.
more complicated.
So even beings that are on that service to self path,
Yeah,
they're still part of like the bigger plan.
exactly. Both sides, both paths are needed for consciousness to evolve.
So it's like you need both
Yeah.
for the whole thing to work.
It's through the back and forth, the push and pull between these forces that we learn and we grow.
Okay, I see.
And we start to understand more.
But if we're talking about service
Yeah.
and the possibility of manipulation,
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking about the end of answer.
Oh, yeah.
It's so ambiguous. Like, are those Giesen stacks really good?
It's hard to tell.
Or is there something like darker going on?
It leaves you hanging.
And it kind of makes you think about our own lives.
How so?
Like we're always having to make decisions,
Right.
navigate relationships, figure out who to trust.
It's true.
And it's not always clear what the right answer is.
A lot of gray areas.
And Ra talks about negative entities
You're right.
that can use our desire to help others
Yeah.
to, like, trick us. Yeah, they can twist it to get what they want.
It's like even good intentions can be used against you.
Yeah.
So you have to be really careful.
You have to be able to, like, see through that.
Yeah, discern, figure out what's really going on.
But how do you do that?
That's the million-dollar question.
Especially with that veil that Ra talks about, limiting what we can perceive.
It's a lifelong process,
Yeah.
and it all starts with understanding yourself.
Really?
The Law of One talks a lot about meditation,
Okay.
quietening the mind.
Right.
That helps you start to see past the veil.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like to understand more.
Yeah.
So it's about developing your intuition.
Yeah, you have to learn to trust that inner voice.
Even when it seems like everything else is pointing you in a different direction.
Exactly.
Ra also talks about the thing called harvest.
The harvest.
Yeah, where souls are like judged at the end of a cycle.
Based on how far they've come spiritually.
Just kind of like a cosmic sorting hat.
That's a good way to put it. It's not about being judged, though.
Okay.
It's about being in alignment. Souls that are all about service to others.
Okay.
Love and unity.
Yeah.
They're drawn to higher densities that match those vibes.
So it's like natural,
Right.
like attracts.
And those who choose the service to self path end up in densities that match their choices.
Okay, so it's not like a reward or punishment.
No?
It's just like where you naturally belong.
Maybe based on what's inside.
But if our internal state, our level of evolution, is what determines where we end up in this harvest.
Yeah.
What are those outside influences we were talking about?
Right.
The negative entities that try to manipulate us. Doesn't that mess with free will?
Now, that is a great question.
Yeah.
It shows how free will and universal laws, they kind of clash.
Okay.
We're responsible for our choices. There are these forces we're not even aware of that can influence the choices we make.
So it's like we're playing a game.
Yeah.
But we don't know all the rules.
Right.
And some players might be cheating.
They might have an agenda.
Yeah.
The key is to learn the rules of the game,
Okay.
to up your skills as a player,
Right?
and make choices that are true to who you are no matter what's going on around you.
So Ray mentions a specific time frame for this cycle.
Yeah.
This harvest point.
It's supposed to happen in the next couple of centuries.
Wow.
Things are about to get interesting.
Yeah, no kidding. But Ra also says that this time frame is like flexible.
It can change.
I mean, it depends on what humanity does.
The more we wake up to this law of one idea,
Okay.
the more we choose love and unity, the smoother this whole transition will be.
So it's not set in stone. We can actually change what happens.
Individually and collectively.
Wow. That's pretty powerful. I don't know. It's like we're on the verge of something huge.
Yeah.
Like a veil's being lifted and there's this whole reality that's way more complicated and connected than we ever thought.
That's what makes exploring these ideas so amazing, right?
Yeah.
You start to see the world differently, yourself differently. You start noticing those little hints, those synchronicities.
Like you're more aware.
It's like, oh, maybe there's something else guiding me here.
So if this harvest thing is real
Yeah,
and our choices really matter,
they do.
what can we do to like get ready?
That's the big question.
How do we get on that higher frequency?
Okay, well, remember those tools we talked about?
Yeah.
Like meditation?
Uh-huh.
That can be super powerful.
All right.
Quieting the mind,
Right.
connecting with your intuition.
Tuning in.
Yeah, and You know, it doesn't have to be this big formal thing.
Like sitting on a mountaintop?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It could be just spending time in nature, listening to music that, like, lifts you up.
Good.
Or even just taking a few minutes every day to just breathe
Right.
and find some peace.
Center yourself.
It's about finding what works for you.
Yeah. What helps you connect with that quiet place inside.
And that's where the real wisdom is.
It also talks about learning,
Yeah.
studying spiritual stuff.
But not just to believe it blindly.
Right.
Use it to figure things out for yourself.
Like a jumping off point.
Exactly. And that's where the law of one can be really helpful.
Okay.
It gives you this framework for understanding reality.
Okay.
Consciousness, spiritual evolution.
But you have to decide what rings true for you.
Yeah, you can't just take it at face value.
It's like you get a map.
But you have to walk the path.
You have to make your own choices.
Learn from your mistakes.
I think the hardest part of the law of one,
Yeah.
and the most inspiring,
Oh, tell me about it.
is this idea of serving others.
Service to others.
It's so easy to get wrapped up in your own stuff.
Right, your own little world.
But Ra's saying that's not how you evolve.
You have to look beyond yourself.
Expand your circle.
Recognize that we're all connected.
And it doesn't have to be like saving the world.
No, it can be small things.
Like what?
Being kind to a stranger,
Yeah.
helping someone out, just putting good vibes out there.
It's about shifting your focus.
From me to we.
Right. Like we're all in this together.
And every little thing you do matters.
Every action has a ripple effect.
We're creating a more harmonious reality.
But being kind.
Exactly.
So we're like weavers.
Yeah.
Making this tapestry of love and unity.
And the more aware we are,
yeah.
the better weavers we become.
And we all contribute to the bigger picture.
The evolution of everything.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into answer and the law of one,
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're leaving with a sense of wonder
Yeah.
and possibility.
Absolutely.
And that you want to live your best life.
Aligned with your values.
Here's one last thing to think about. Pay attention to those little nudges, those synchronicities,
Right.
the things that seem random, but maybe aren't.
And maybe they're trying to tell you something.
Trust your gut
And be open to the next.
when you're in sync with the universe.
It's out there.
So until next time,
Keep searching.
keep questioning.
And keep diving deep.